On today's podcast, my wife Britton and we sit down with Dr. Bill Lile. Dr. Lile is a board-certified medical doctor, and he practices obstetrics and gynecology locally here in Pensacola. He is an absolute expert on all things that have to do with pregnancy and advocating for the life of the preborn. Dr. Lile is known as the pro-life doc, and he has appeared on Fox News multiple times, as well as on multiple other media outlets. He is also a highly sought-after speaker, and I'm excited to mention that Dr. Lile will be joining us in person at NorthStone for both the Sunday morning and the Sunday evening services September 8th. In today's interview, we discuss controversial topics like in vitro fertilization, Florida Amendment 4, the dangers of an ectopic pregnancy, and what to do when a preborn baby's life is threatening the life of a mother, and we discuss much more. Dr. Lile is well known for explaining that a patient is a person, no matter how small. This interview starts out great, but it gets better as it goes on. So please stay with us to the end of this podcast. And if you do, I'm sure that you'll receive lots of strength for your life.
Welcome to the Strength for Life podcast with Pastor James C. Johnson, a ministry of NorthStone Baptist Church in Pensacola, Florida.
Dr. Lile, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Now, you practice locally here. Could you tell us a little bit about where you practice and how long you've been serving the Pensacola community?
Sure. My residency was through the University of Florida, and I've been in private practice here in Pensacola for 25 years now.
That's great.
Celebrated that this month, being here for 25 years. Have delivered over 5,000 babies, and it's just an honor to be here.
Wow, that's terrific. Yeah. Now, this Amendment 4 is a big deal. Our church has taken a stand publicly. We're right here on 9 Mile Road, so we've had banners out here. We've got more banners even being made in the pulpit. I've talked quite a bit about this Florida Constitutional Amendment 4. Could you talk to us a little bit about that and really the evils of it?
Sure. It's a spiritual battle. We know that it's a spiritual battle because this is an attack on the image of God in the womb. We're created in the image of God at the moment of conception. We treat the babies in the womb as patients, whether it's blood transfusions or open heart surgery, but this is an attack against my patients that are in the womb. It's also a violation against the will of the people. When I took over my practice in 1999, it was the largest abortion clinic here in our region. We took it over and had the physician sign a non-compete where he couldn't practice any medicine for the next 2 years. We stopped all the abortions on day one, stopped all abortion referrals, and as of right now, there's not a single abortion clinic here in the Pensacola region.
Praise the Lord, yeah.
So when we took over the practice, the gestational age cap for an abortion was 24 weeks. We had babies surviving in our NICU at 23 weeks gestation. So you could save the life of a baby in our NICU, or you could abort the baby, and it was all legal. There was more protection for the baby sea turtles over on Pensacola Beach than there was for babies, my patients in the womb. So through a legislative effort, we passed a law that brought it from 24 weeks down to 15 weeks, which was great, but we still wanted to do more. As of May 1st of this year, we had new legislation passed by the House, passed by the Senate, signed by Governor DeSantis, and as of May 1st of this year, we were at heartbeat, 6 weeks, and we were all set to, start attacking the abortion pill next. And then the ACLU of Florida, Planned Parenthood of Florida jumped in because evil cannot rest until it has done what is evil. They got involved. They spent $20 million to get this constitutional amendment on the ballot. They're spending another $20 million in order to draw up support, mostly through deception, on this constitutional amendment. And if it gains 60% of the vote, and depending on the polls, it's a little below 60, and sometimes it's 60%, or 65% in favor. But if it passes and it becomes a constitutional amendment, there is no law, there's no government, the governor could not do a proclamation or executive order which could reverse it. But what would happen is abortion at any gestational age for any reason would be constitutionally protected in Florida. Also, state funds would have to go to support this, and even people from more conservative, pro-life states around us could send patients to Florida, and Floridians would be, through their tax dollars, paying for these abortions for any reason at any gestational age. It violates the will of the people because the people had already spoken, and it violates our science because across the state we have some of the most advanced care for the babies in the womb. Even at my hospital, we have done blood transfusions directly in the womb to babies while they're as early as 18 weeks gestation. So if your church has a blood drive and somebody has O negative blood, we can actually save a baby's life by giving them a blood transfusion. The question is, well, why would they need a blood transfusion? Because from the moment of conception, the moms and the babies are genetically unique. I mean, half the time it's a boy on the inside. And the moms actually will have antibodies which can attack the baby's blood, cross the placenta, and the baby's blood count drops. So the only cure is to either deliver the baby or give the baby a blood transfusion. So when they're 18 weeks, you can't deliver them, so we give them blood transfusion. So Amendment 4 is sweeping the state. The church needs to get involved, and it's a spiritual battle.
Talk to us about the vagueness of Amendment 4, if you would, just a little bit. And then you mentioned all the efforts the pro-abortion crowd is going through, millions of dollars being spent. And it seems like there's very little effort when it comes to Christian community actually doing much of anything. So would you talk about that?
Sure. Well, when it comes to the writing of Amendment 4, you can read some of the discourses from Alliance Defending Freedom. We worked with them, and they developed a 7-page outline as far as what are the real aspects of Amendment 4. And it was written to be intentionally vague. It says that no law shall be able to delay or prevent an abortion prior to viability, is how it starts off with. Well, viability isn't defined, but we would usually say viability is around 23 or 24 weeks. Well, that's the part of the amendment that they are focusing on, Planned Parenthood and the ACLU of Florida, saying this is only up until viability. But then there's a huge 2-letter word right after that phrase, and it says or. If the patient's health is determined to be threatened as determined by the patient's health care provider. Well, patient's health. Well, I'm always for protecting patient's health. If I have a pregnant mom, I have 2 patients, though. I have the mom and I have the baby, and the goal is to have a healthy mom and a healthy baby. When it comes to definition of health, you think, well, that probably means that the mom's going to die unless something is done. Absolutely not. There are conditions where the mom's health might be threatened by the pregnancy. Severe preeclampsia, eclampsia, HELP syndrome. The cure is not taking the life of the baby. The cure is delivering the baby. Killing the baby doesn't do any good. It is the delivery of the baby. And our NICU has babies that are surviving at 23 weeks. So when we have these situations, we deliver the baby. But the word health, how do you define health? Well, health was actually defined in 1973 in a case called Doe versus Bolton. Doe versus Bolton was released the same day as Roe versus Wade. And Doe versus Bolton did define health. It defined health as being physical, but also physical, emotional, psychological, familial, and age. So it was so broad, there are no restrictions on what health means. You might be too old. You might be too young. You might have depression. You might have anxiety. Your mom doesn't want you to have the baby. Dad doesn't want you to have a baby. So health is so broad that there are no limitations. But then who determines health being threatened? Well, the amendment says the patient's health care provider. It's not an independent group of physicians. It doesn't even have to be a physician. The Florida Department of Health governs everything from physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, physicians, assistants, medical assistants, all the way down to tattoo artists.
Oh, wow.
So there are no limits as far as health or healthcare provider. So Alliance Defending Freedom is absolutely correct when they surmise that if Amendment 4 passes, it would mean that abortion at any gestational age, up until the due date when the baby is still on the inside, for any reason, would be constitutionally protected and could only be reversed with another constitutional amendment, which would take years, if not decades, and tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
Now, Dr. Lile, we are so honored to have you on this podcast. We know that you're very outspoken on this topic. We really respect what you're doing. It's fantastic just to hear pithy responses of what we can be praying for specifically. That amendment, we did post that video, reposted the bait and switch video. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just so clear. It is in simple terms that we can understand how they are trying to pull the mask over our eyes. You've been very outspoken with this.
For years.
For years.
And we've been a part of the Run for Life that the Micah 6-8 men host. We've been doing that for years. Our church has been sponsoring that, and we've seen you there and heard. So you've been after this a lot.
Yes, you've been a keynote speaker at some of the fundraisers for the Safe Harbor Pregnancy Medical Clinic. But are you feeling any pushback from social media for the stand that you take? I know sometimes they give strikes against the Christian worldview.
They suppress videos.
Yes, they do what they can to suppress that.
We get that all the time. You know, TikTok was the first to really shut us down. We were having amazing responses from the audiences when we would show them how we treat them as patients, whether it's open heart surgery, spina bifida surgery, brain surgery, blood transfusions. And then we were also talking about the abortion pill and how we can safely and effectively reverse the effect of the abortion pill. But recently, TikTok has hit the mute button on all of our things. They'll post the video, but they won't allow us to have any audio. And they say it's because we violated the community standard. And you ask, what was the community standard to defend a baby in the womb? And they won't tell us. So there is pure censorship. You try to use little tips from the social media people that are very knowledgeable as far as putting a label, and hopefully it won't be blocked by social media. But the real thing is that it's amazing how the left can get almost anything on social media. But as soon as you say things like spiritual battle or put a Bible verse on there, or you say that you are defending life and you're against abortion, even though you want to help and meet all the needs of the moms, just the fact that you're defending life will get you censored. So we have had a lot better luck on other platforms. So we're really emphasizing those. And we do a lot of work on YouTube. For the most part, YouTube is able to get our message out. But we also will do direct things to the pastors. This is a spiritual battle, and we've tried to provide tools for pastors. Just this week, we released a 8-lesson curriculum, which is 8 video sessions of about 30 to 40 minutes with workbooks, and it just got picked up by CareNet. CareNet is the second largest pregnancy resource center in America, second only to Heartbeat International, and CareNet has 1,200 pregnancy centers that are underneath of their leadership, and Roland Warren and I have been doing a monthly show called The Doctor Is In, where we can take this information, give it to all their affiliates. Well, just today we offered a special discount, and they released it to all 1,200 of the CareNet affiliates. So you have to figure out, where can I get the biggest bang for the investment? So we spent about a year going through to develop this curriculum. One of the highlights is animations, where you can take a 60-second animation of, say, open heart surgery. When I sit down with my animator, it will take me 3.5, maybe 4 hours of conversation like we're having now, almost frame by frame, to describe how an open heart surgery is performed, how they actually give anesthesia to the baby in the womb, and the procedure on how this is done. He can take a 4-hour conversation and he can turn it into a 70-second animation where you walk away with the same knowledge and information.
Wow, that's neat.
That's efficiency in teaching and training.
And where is that animation available if one of our listeners wanted to?
You can go to our website, prolifedoc.org. In fact, if you just want to get the workbook, you can go to Amazon. There's something called Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, where we uploaded the workbook directly to Amazon, so you don't have to store, you don't have to ship. People can go and look up pro-life and then space doc, and it'll bring up the curriculum for $12. They'll have it printed and delivered to you in 48 hours. So it's pretty amazing how you can use tools like that to teach and train.
What other social media platforms are you on if people want to follow you? You mentioned YouTube. Are you on all the other ones too?
All the other ones.
And they just
under Pro-Life Doc primarily.
Yeah.
And Instagram, X. X is we haven't had any restrictions at all with X, which has been wonderful. I mean, we aren't deceptive and we don't lie, but we're just trying to get out the truth. Give people the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Amen. Yeah.
And so we use scientific truth and facts. We back it up, and then we also heavily will put in scripture. This is a spiritual battle, and for people to say, well, we just want to use legislation, we just want to use science, we want to use medicine to change people's hearts and minds, it's a spiritual battle.
Right.
And if you don't engage in a spiritual battle with prayer and scripture, you're not going to win a spiritual battle.
I saw on your website Proverbs 31, I think verse 8, talking about helping those that can't help themselves. I thought that was wonderful. Could you also, on your website, I saw an article about Vitro Fertilization.
Sure.
Yes.
And so, if you're watching this, I do encourage you to check out his website. You could read that full article. But could you talk a little bit about in vitro fertilization, a biblical perspective about it?
Sure. First, I'm not Catholic. So Catholics will have their own perception when it comes to reproductive assistance. The way I look at it is in Genesis, we were told to be fruitful and multiply. And that's one of the most exciting experiences is to have a child. My wife and I, we went through 2 miscarriages, then we had our first baby. Then we had a 3rd miscarriage. We had our 2nd daughter, and then we had a 4th miscarriage. And there's nothing that brings you more joy than having children. And so in the effort of being fruitful and multiply, for lots of reasons, lots of women can't get pregnant. 40% of the time, it's an issue with the mom. 40% of the time, it's an issue with the dad. And then 20% of the time, we just don't know why they can't get pregnant. So we have advanced in medicine with reproductive endocrinology, where we can actually address the issues. If it's a problem with the mom, we can use medications to help stimulate the ovaries to have her ovulate. If it's a problem with the dad, we can take samples of sperm and we can combine, say, 10 or 20 samples into one sample and transfer that. For couples that have blocked tubes or other, issues, there are issues where they just will not be able to get pregnant. So we have in vitro fertilization, where with technology now, you can stimulate a woman's ovaries to produce lots of eggs, and then you can actually, if you need to, sample and do a biopsy of the dad and just harvest one sperm. And then you can use micromanipulators like little tiny robots and inject that one sperm into one egg. And that's the moment of conception. You can then transfer that tiny little zygote directly into the womb, and that baby can start to grow on the inside. So when it comes to reproductive endocrinology, I think it's an amazing way for us to be fruitful and multiply, especially for couples who can't get pregnant any other way. But what are the caveats that go along with it? Right now, we have almost 1.5 million frozen embryos that are in a suspended state of, care, where they are frozen solid with liquid nitrogen. Some of these embryos have been there for over 20 years. Well, what do you do? Well, I firmly believe, and I think it's scripturally sound and it is medically sound, that we are created in the image of God at that moment of conception. So when we have these embryos and when couples are going through reproductive endocrinology, they have to go into this. thinking that any embryo that is fertilized, I have a duty and an obligation to try to give it life, to transfer it into a womb. Well, we have some couples who maybe on their first try, they had 8 frozen embryos. Well, what do? They transfer 3 or 4. What if she has triplets? And like,
Right.
I'm overloaded. I've got triplets now.
Right.
But they might have 4 or 5 embryos that are still frozen. Well, if they have frozen embryos, but they really weren't planning on having more children than the 3 they already have, there's an amazing ministry called Snowflake where you can legally adopt somebody else's embryos, transfer them into your womb, gestate that baby, and then that baby is legally yours. Our science is sometimes ahead of our ethics. There have been legal cases where couples have frozen embryos, but then something goes wrong and they get divorced. Well, who has the embryos?
Oh, wow.
There have actually been legal custody battles, not possession, custody. It's not like, well, who gets the Mona Lisa, who gets the car, who gets the house. You are getting custody of these embryos. There have been other cases. I was reading a case over in Japan where a couple was having infertility issues and they had frozen embryos, and tragically they were both killed in a car accident. Well, now the couple's parents, the grandparents of these embryos, are battling over custody. So there is so much that is involved, but I think the key is that it's an amazing technology. It is healthy for the babies. They don't seem to show any issues, but we need to use every embryo that is created in the image of God.
Yes. Yeah.
But the other thing is we have over 1 million, sometimes it's 1.5 million couples who are going through infertility and they're trying to adopt. Well, that's where Snowflake comes in. It's like, wow, we have on this hand 1 million people that want to have children and they're trying to adopt, and it can take years and years and years and sometimes over $100,000 to adopt a child. They're going all over the world to try to adopt a child. Meanwhile, we have over 1 million frozen embryos. So Snowflake tries to match the two. So I'm an advocate for reproductive endocrinology because I've seen amazing couples that would not get pregnant and would not have a child any other way. But we have a duty and an obligation to realize that that baby that is frozen, maybe for decades, is created in the image of God at that moment of conception. And whether the couple transfers them and gives them every opportunity to grow into a fully developed baby, or whether they adopt it through Snowflake, that's where I think we need to be assured as far as what we are doing.
Can a frozen embryo be potentially viable for decades and decades and decades? I mean,
it really can.
Indefinitely?
We have had embryos who, if you say, well, they were created in 1999, we have had embryos that aren't as old as the mom they were transferred to, but were just about. Nobody has had one where the embryo was older, but we've had it within a few months. So, but we've had moms who are carrying embryos from their daughters, if their daughters have infertility. So our, science is ahead of our bioethics, but I think the key foundation is if a Christian married couple wants to have kids, I don't see a problem with them going through reproductive endocrinology as long as they go into this with the mindset that every embryo that is fertilized, we're going to do everything we can to let this baby grow and gestate. And if we can't take on that many children, then we're going to try to adopt and give this baby the opportunity to be transferred to another couple so that it can be grown in their womb and can be grown in, grow up in a wonderful household.
Wow.
Is infertility an increasing issue in America? Like somebody said in my hearing recently that it's become an epidemic in the United States.
Like environmental factors that are causing it?
What are things that are causing it? And is it increasing? Is that true?
It absolutely is. Several different factors. We know that for women, a lot of women are choosing to start having children later in life. We have patients who have premature ovarian failure where they go through menopause early. We also have an issue regarding sexually transmitted diseases, where we have an epidemic of gonorrhea and chlamydia in our younger children. And when they get older and they want to get pregnant, the sexually transmitted infections that they were exposed to when they were younger have scarred their tubes. And if the fallopian tubes are scarred, then it's almost like having your tubes tied, and you're not going to be able to get pregnant. But then there are also issues which affect men. We know that the sperm count on men is dropping down, and there are a lot of environmental factors, sometimes exposure to other estrogens, and whether it's hormones that are in their diet. Soy, we know, is with a lot of estrogens, they're extracted from soy and other compounds. So with a soy-based increasing amount in the diet, we're seeing a lot of men who have decreased sperm counts.
What is an ectopic pregnancy?
Yes, we had a missionary wife who wrote a book about 2 experiences with ectopic pregnancy. It's the first time I'd heard about it, and I just did some research into it. She felt guilty. She had one side affected. The second time was her other side. And she wanted to be really frank about saying it was an abortion because it was a live, I don't know, at the stage there, but that child could have thrived had it been where it was supposed to be. So she had to sign a paper to end that baby's life. So she felt the guilt of an abortion while that baby would have, I guess,
took her
made
life.
her fallopian tubes, explode or whatever there. Can you explain it to us?
Let's define an ectopic pregnancy. An ectopic pregnancy is a pregnancy that occurs outside of the uterus. It is still a union of egg and sperm that is growing and developing. The most common area for an ectopic pregnancy to form is actually in one of the tubes. Most pregnancies where egg and sperm come together is actually in the tube, and then it has a 2 to 4 day trip down the tube until it would normally implant in the lining of the uterus. But sometimes there can be scarring or infection in the tube, and the pregnancy will actually implant right in the tube. Sometimes it will implant on the ovary itself. In rare conditions, it can implant on the bowel. So when a patient has a positive pregnancy test, that just says there's a pregnancy. But it's not until an ultrasound is performed that you can see where the pregnancy is. Wow. Statistically, out of every 100 pregnancies, 1% of them will be ectopic. So if we had the technology where we do an ultrasound and we can see where this ectopic pregnancy is, and we said, well, let's just remove it from the tube and we'll implant it into the uterus, that would be great. We are nowhere close to having that kind of technology. Historically, there have been 2 cases where it was reported that somebody had transferred the pregnancy from the tube to the uterus. When you go back and you look at these, it was most likely what was called a heterotopic pregnancy, which means that there were twins. One happened to be in the uterus, and I've had 2 of these in my career, and the other twin happened to be in the tube. So when they did their little procedure and they moved the pregnancy from one area, the tube, to the uterus, most likely there was already a normal pregnancy in the uterus. So an ectopic pregnancy is absolutely an emergency. It is a threat to the mother's life. And it is the number 1 pregnancy-related cause of death for women in the United States in the first trimester of pregnancy. So it is real. It's something that we see. If we had the technology to transfer to the uterus, we would, but we don't. So is that an abortion? No. An abortion is an elective termination of a pregnancy that is in the uterus. This is a direct threat to the life of the mother. And whether you look at Scripture or our Christian bioethics or Judeo-Christian ethic, when you have one life that is not going to be able to be saved, but it's a direct threat to the life that is of the mother, then we don't have any opportunity to save both, but we do have an opportunity to save one.
Yeah. It's a great way to explain
it. Yes, it is.
Very good. Yeah. Could you talk to us about RNC versus DNC? Right now, the DNC is having their convention. Some of the differences as it pertains to abortion between the 2 parties.
Well, first, let's talk about the RNC because their convention is already over. And the RNC has compromised on their platform a little bit. And that's probably because they want to win. And they're compromising. But when it comes to compromising, I get asked that question all the time. Should we compromise on rape, incest, and things? And the way I respond is, give me one example, because we're supposed to follow the example of Christ. How should we live our life? That is the perfect model. Live like Christ. Give me one example where Jesus compromised in order to fulfill the will of the Father. There isn't any.
Right.
So when it comes to politics, and I don't know if Trump is actually a saved man. I'll leave that up to God. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we know he loves to win and he hates to lose. So rather than having a national platform, which would be, we're going to protect life, they're saying that, well, now that Roe versus Wade is no longer the law of the land and Casey has been overruled as well, we're going to leave it up to the states. And the more conservative states will save life and the more liberal states will take life. Well, that takes us back to where we were in the 1860s here in the United States. If slavery is wrong in New Jersey, and they say, we're not going to allow that, then slavery is wrong in Alabama. If abortion is legal in New Jersey and abortion is wrong and not legal in Florida, well, it's still wrong.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. Our geographic location doesn't give us rights or take away our rights. So the Republican Party has compromised a little bit. But let's put that in comparison to the Democratic National Committee. When we are recording here today, they are getting ready to start day 3 of the DNC conference over in Chicago. And what the DNC has as their platform is abortion at any gestational age for any reason, funded by federal tax dollars. In fact, just to put emphasis on that, one of the groups that is there at the DNC is a Planned Parenthood bus.
Right.
The Planned Parenthood bus is there. Day 1, they treated 10 women with the abortion pill. Day 2, they treated another 15 women with the abortion pill. This is what they are saying they stand for. They're even offering vasectomies. I mean, just in the name of contraception. My question is, how many people who were identified as being female at the time of their birth, but now over time, now identify as being male, how many of those males are going to show up at the bus to get a vasectomy? I got a funny feeling it's going to be less than one. And it's like, wait a second, but they identify as a man now. Well, then go ahead and be a good Democrat and get a vasectomy over at the bus there. Nobody's going to do that.
Right.
So, but they're just putting the emphasis that they are in favor of abortion at any gestational age for any reason, and that is part of their platform, and they want our federal tax dollars to pay for that.
Yeah. Could you maybe rattle off a couple names of politicians that you appreciate on this issue? I personally love our governor, and I feel like he's taken a reasonable position as it pertains to these things. I'm definitely an abolitionist, though, on the abortion issue. Are there a couple politicians you'd say you feel like they're doing it reasonably well?
I love Ron DeSantis. You know, Ron DeSantis was really working well with us. He's the one who pushed the House and the Senate to really bring the abortion gestational age cap from 15 weeks down to heartbeat. He says, you get me a bill. He says, I'll sign it into law. They got him a bill. He signed it into law. I actually spoke over at the Capitol to members of the House and the Senate. And that night after I spoke there in Tallahassee, the House passed it. 2 weeks later, the Senate signed it. And that night, Governor DeSantis signed that.
That's great.
And so I've got a lot of respect for him on that. There are lots of pro-life groups, but trying to figure out the heart and what the politicians, I can't read their minds.
Right.
You know, I can hear what they will say because this might be beneficial to them due to their constituents, but I really don't know about their convictions.
There's a lot of populist politicians.
Sure.
I feel like Ron DeSantis is a principled man.
I do.
And so I respect him for that. Yeah. You mentioned the abortion pill. Could you talk to us about the abortion pill and maybe the difference between that and the morning after?
Yes. Are they the same thing or are they different?
Different. They're both evil, but they're different. Let's start with the morning after pill. The morning after pill is a lot of progesterone. Progesterone is what keeps a pregnancy going. A woman will have her menstrual cycle when there's a rapid decrease in progesterone levels. So when a woman has intercourse and thinks she might have gotten pregnant, the morning after pill is indicated for up to 72 hours after she's had intercourse, where she'll take a big surge with pills of progesterone, but then she stops that progesterone. So when the progesterone levels precipitously drop, the body says, oh, it's time to have a menstrual cycle. So if a pregnancy happened to have occurred, it will be flushed out with her menstrual cycle. Still evil. But the other thing is, most women really don't know when they actually conceived. Just because you had sex last night doesn't mean that you might not have had intercourse 6 days before that. But it's indicated for up to 72 hours, so it is the morning after.
Is that what they would call like the emergency contraceptive?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's, in a lot of states, it's available over the counter. It will force a woman to have a menstrual cycle. So if she happened to have conceived and that early pregnancy is working its way from the tube down to the uterus, once it gets to the uterus, it will force her to have a menstrual cycle, and that very, very early pregnancy would be passed. Mom doesn't even have a pregnancy test that's positive, because a pregnancy test doesn't turn positive until the pregnancy actually implants in the wall of the uterus.
I have a friend who did that morning after pill. Said it almost killed her. It was the worst cramping, bleeding. It was terrible.
Correct. How does that compare to the abortion pill? It's very different. You have the morning after pill, but the abortion pill is actually indicated for 70 mornings after. It's indicated for up to 10 weeks gestation. It is 98% effective in killing a baby in the womb up to 10 weeks gestation. The average gestational age when a woman will come into our office for her first ultrasound is about 6 to 7 weeks. And we can measure the baby. We can see and hear the heart beating. At that gestational age, babies not only have fingers, they have fingerprints, they have toes. So the abortion pill blocks progesterone. So the woman got pregnant and her body is celebrating, hey, we're pregnant. And it starts to increase and continue the production of progesterone. Big word, progesterone. Let's break down big words into little words. Progesterone is the progestational steroid hormone. This is the hormone that's kind of the conductor of pregnancy, the coach of pregnancy. It's the hormone that says, congratulations, woman's body, you're pregnant. Our new full-time job is supporting this pregnancy. And progesterone continues to be produced to tell the body, keep the pregnancy going. We're going to relax the uterus. We're not going to have a menstrual cycle. Cervix, you're going to stay closed. And we're going to get more blood supply. We're going to increase appetite. All the things that happen in pregnancy are because of the coach, which is progesterone. The abortion pill is very effective in blocking the effect of progesterone. It's kind of like putting on earmuffs, where your body was singing, congratulations, we're pregnant, we're pregnant, we're pregnant. And all of a sudden a set of earmuffs go on and you don't hear that message anymore. So when there's no message about the pregnancy, then the body starts to withdraw support of the pregnancy. The day after somebody takes the abortion pill, they take a medication called Cytotec. Cytotec is a prostaglandin that causes uterine contractions. We use prostaglandins in normal pregnancies to induce labor. When we induce labor, I can have a patient who's 41 weeks pregnant, has an 8-pound baby on the inside, and we'll start by inducing her with 25 micrograms of Cytotec. And it's very effective, it's very safe. When it comes to the abortion pill dosing, it's not 25 micrograms of Cytotec, it's 800 micrograms of Cytotec. Wow. So when people say they're having bleeding, cramping, and pain, well, yeah, obviously you are. But there's, an increase in availability. In California, the College Health Center has the abortion pill available for anybody who wants it. In a lot of states, it's available mail order. And that's a problem even when states will ban use of the abortion pill. We don't have drug-sniffing dogs which can sniff out the abortion pill. It's also widely used in the sex trade. We live here right by I-10. I came up I-10 to get to your office today. There is so much trafficking of young women along I-10, sex trafficking. Then they get over to the East Coast, and then you have the interstates which are going north and south. Well, the abortion pill is almost as ubiquitous as, say, a cell phone in the sex trade, where you can get a pregnancy test at the dollar store. They'll make these young ladies take a pregnancy test once a month, and if it happens to turn positive, they'll force them to take the abortion pill against their desires and against their will. But just a few years ago, it was about 53% of all the abortions in the United States were performed with the abortion pill. And it's 98% effective in killing that baby in the womb up to 10 weeks gestation. The most recent numbers we just got show that it's now up over 60% of all the abortions in the United States are performed with the abortion pill, which is what Planned Parenthood was handing out at the DNC conference, giving out the abortion pill. So we've also had, tragically, women getting hurt with the abortion pill, because especially when they're not doing ultrasounds to see where that pregnancy is. We just talked about ectopic pregnancies, where statistically 1% of all pregnancies will be ectopic. If the abortion pill is given to a woman 1% of the time, that pregnancy is also going to be an ectopic pregnancy, and the abortion pill is not a treatment for an ectopic pregnancy. So when a woman is given the abortion pill combination, she's told, you are going to have bleeding, cramping, and pain. Well, what are the symptoms of an ectopic pregnancy?
The same.
Bleeding, cramping, and pain. So unfortunately, a lot of young ladies who are taking the abortion pill, they don't tell their parents, they don't tell their friends, they just get the abortion pill. They know they're pregnant. They're scared to death. They don't feel like they have any love or support from either their father of the baby, their friends, or their parents. So they take the abortion pill at home. Usually they will have a night of bleeding, cramping, and pain when things are going as the abortion pill is designed to do. But 1% of the time it's going to be an ectopic pregnancy. And we've had reports of moms coming to an emergency room and they've passed away. They are dead. And the post-mortem has shown that they had a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. Then when you dig a little bit further, you find out that she knew she was pregnant. She took the abortion pill, but she had an ectopic pregnancy, was having bleeding, cramping, and pain, thought this is what I'm supposed to have. But then when they do the post-mortem, they see that these girls have ruptured ectopic pregnancies. They might have 500, 800 cc's of blood in their belly, and they bled to death at home. So when we're talking healthcare,
it's evil. Like you said. Yeah.
And we understand the risks, but there's this mentality, on the far left where we're willing to ignore the health and lives of these young ladies just because we see the opportunity to have an abortion. And so it's evil. It's pure evil, it's painful, and it's a spiritual battle.
Yeah. I was on the board of First Choice for Women, which is a pro-life organization in Muncie, Indiana. And one of the things that really helped that ministry was when they got an ultrasound machine. Could you talk a little bit about the power of an ultrasound?
Ultrasound's an amazing tool. We started doing urine pregnancy tests, 1920s. And then, technology developed, and we had used x-rays in the early 1900s. The only way you could even see the position of a baby was to do an x-ray. Then we developed ultrasound in the 1950s. And it's an amazing tool. It doesn't cause any risk to the mom or any risk to the baby, but an ultrasound allows the baby to communicate with the mom. A pregnancy is so much more than whether you have one line or two lines on a urine pregnancy test. An ultrasound opens up the real world where you can see the uterus, you can see the gestational sac, you can see the baby moving around on the inside. We want to stimulate all of the senses. Pregnancy centers will have big screen TVs because we want them to not just be looking at a little monitor. We want a big flat screen on the wall so the baby can, wave and say hi. But we can also do short lengths of Doppler ultrasound where we can actually hear the heart. And using two different senses is so important. Visual is one thing, but you see all of our kids, they always have earbuds in their ears. They have their $200 headphones, Beats by Dr. Dre. They're, really addicted.
I want to see that doctorate he got, that certificate.
Dr.
I don't
Dre.
know.
Yeah, Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's valid.
I don't think he's board certified. Yeah. But you see these kids, and there's something, especially when we see the dads there in the ultrasound room when a mom is considering an abortion and the dad is there. But then we have good quality speakers, and you hear that thump, 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 thump,
Oh,
thump.
that's powerful.
That's not just seeing something, you are feeling it.
Yes. Yeah.
When you have a good bass speaker, you're not only hearing it, you're feeling it and you're seeing it. And it's really a way for the baby to communicate to the mom and the dad saying, I'm much more than just a positive pregnancy test. I'm a human being.
Yes.
Yeah, amen.
Fun fact, like a fun story. So our very first one, he's 21 now, but when we had our ultrasound of Mark, he was sucking his thumb. So she got a snapshot of that.
So cool.
And,
So
and
cool.
James and I brought it to my mom, who was she was a church secretary in Avon, Indiana. So she said, oh, this is precious. I love it. And she said, I'm going to laminate it. She laminated the ultrasound and it all turned black.
Oh, no.
It didn't work out.
So it's just a mental picture now.
Sure. That's right. It's there and it sticks, and it's an amazing tool that we can use
It is.
to let the baby communicate to the mom.
Yeah. Can you talk to us about your family and how they've supported you in this effort?
Well, the effort started on the day we took over the practice. We took over the practice in 1999, and I'll never forget it. The goal was always to take over the abortion clinic, stop all the abortions, and we thought we had done our job, and there was no long-term plan. But it was on a Sunday afternoon after church where actually, for the first time, I had a key to the practice. I had toured it, seen it on the first floor, but it was up on the second floor where they actually had the surgical clinic, and they had done thousands of abortions upstairs. So I left from church and wanted to stop by my office just to kind of give it a tour. And I'll never forget walking up the stairs. I mean, we're on the same road as Pensacola Christian College. There are big churches on both sides. And I remember walking up those stairs, seeing the surgical suite for the first time, thinking, how many thousands upon thousands of moms with a baby on the inside have walked up the same set of stairs, spent 20 minutes in the surgical suite, and then went down the other set of stairs without that baby.
So sad.
Yeah.
So I was so convicted. I spoke with my pastor. I said, this has been going on for decades. So we did a presentation, and that's where the ministry started. We had one daughter at that time, and my wife was completely supportive. I said, I'd like to do a presentation at our church. And that led to a presentation at another church. And now we developed the ministry. We're a 501c3, not-for-profit, and we'll probably speak out of state, out of Florida, probably 40 times this year at other churches, Christian universities, pregnancy care centers. But we also get invited to places like the University of Florida College of Medicine, Liberty University School of Law, Liberty University College of Medicine, and we'll work with patients' rights. So now it's almost a full-time ministry for my wife and I. My wife is completely supportive. She handles a lot of the work that I'm just not organized enough to handle. A lot of times my daughters would go with me around the country to do presentations. We had the opportunity, we homeschooled both of our daughters, and sometimes I'd say, hey, I was speaking for Heartbeat in Chicago. So I invited my daughter. I said, let's go to Chicago together. Daddy's going to speak, but then why don't we get tickets? We saw Hamilton while we were there in Chicago, got some great pizza and toured the city. So it was a great time to have daddy-daughter dates and time with my daughters. And now one's married, one's getting married next month, but they're both active in pro-life. In fact, my youngest daughter is actually an ultrasound tech at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville.
That's so good.
Oh,
So it's just been a rewarding opportunity for us to bond as a family, just like the two of you. It's ministry together. Nothing brings a couple together better, I think, than when you can not only spend time, raise a family, but minister, perform kingdom service as a couple. There's nothing better.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fun. If I am being honest, I can put myself in the position of a 17, 18-year-old girl who finds out she's pregnant and is panicked. And as it goes in my mind, it would be like, I need to fix this. I need to do something. I can't let this continue. I'm not ready for myriad of reasons, financially, or, I bring shame to my family, or she's feeling pressured from a boyfriend to have an abortion, what would you say to her?
Contact your local pregnancy resource center. They will share the truth with you. They will sit down. They're not going to be judgmental. They're going to provide a free ultrasound. They will confirm the pregnancy, but they'll also give you all the resources that are available. With a lot of pregnancy centers have resources not only to get you access to health care, but also housing. Where if you don't know where you're going to live, or you think your parents might not let you live there, then they will help provide you with housing. They'll provide you with counseling. They have counseling for the dad. The dads, other than the ultrasound, the dads are the biggest factor in having the mom continue with the pregnancy. That's why it's so important to have the dads there present at the time of the ultrasound. But pregnancy resource centers are an amazing first stop to encourage somebody to maintain that pregnancy. If they could change everything from 8 weeks ago, fine, but this is where we are. And if somebody says, well, I'm not ready to be pregnant. Well, that's already happened. Conception, reproduction has already happened.
Right, yeah.
Let's take that as a blessing, but we have a duty as the church to help this young lady, provide her with the counseling, say, what are your needs? We're here to meet your needs. And the majority of girls, when they get that kind of love, they have the ultrasound, are going to feel love and support. They're going to keep that pregnancy, and they're very appreciative of that. But then if somebody says, you don't understand, I can't continue this pregnancy, then you say, well, let's continue the pregnancy, but we also have a whole list of thousands of couples that would love to adopt your baby.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's happened in my practice frequently, where it ends up being a blessing for the couple that has been praying for a baby.
Yes.
But then you have the young lady who might not have had support from the boyfriend and the family, carries the pregnancy, gets to deliver the pregnancy, and then gives the most amazing gift to this couple. So there's lots of opportunities. The church needs to be understanding and shower these young girls with love,
Yeah.
Right.
and not be saying, you sinner, you had sex out of marriage. A lot of people do. We all make mistakes. Even when it comes to the abortion pill, a lot of women regret that they have taken the abortion pill. Well, just like people can make bad decisions and take a narcotic. Last year we had over 112,000 people in the United States die of narcotic overdoses. And do all of them die? No, because we have an antidote called Narcan. Somebody made a bad decision, they overdosed on a narcotic, the most common is fentanyl, yet we can give them the antidote and save their life. Well, we have the same opportunity when it comes to somebody who is pregnant, but then took the abortion pill. We have about a 72-hour window where we can safely reverse the effect of the abortion pill.
That's incredible.
About 60% of the time we can be successful. I've attempted 19 reversals at my practice. We've been successful 15 out of those 19 times.
Wow.
I have one young lady who
wonderful.
getting ready to deliver her second baby. She came to me, she was pregnant, had taken the abortion pill, immediately had profound regrets. We walked her through and we provided her with the abortion pill reversal medication. We had talked about progesterone and how the abortion pill blocks progesterone. All we do is we give them progesterone. Progesterone that we use in normal pregnancies to prevent preterm labor and keep a pregnancy going. We were successful, reversed the effect of the abortion pill. We had a heartbeat. Week later, we had a strong heartbeat. She then told her boyfriend, didn't know how he was going to respond. He was thrilled. They got engaged during the pregnancy. They got married before she had the baby. And she was back in the office about 4 months ago. She brought baby William with her to just show me baby William. Baby William's about 2.5 now. But it was cool. We got pictures together. She named him William after me, which was
that's so cool.
Well, William means the bold protector, so it was kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
But the reason she was there was not just to show off William. She was there because she was pregnant again, and this time it's a little girl, and she's about 34 weeks pregnant now. So we'll be delivering that baby in the next few weeks.
So is the little girl Willadina? Something along those lines?
Wilma.
Oh, Wilma, there we go. Yeah.
Are you finding that the babies that have been born from the reversal are perfectly healthy?
It's a red light or green light. Where you're either going to be 100% successful or unfortunately you're not going to be successful. So you really don't have anything to lose to attempt reversing. There's no evidence at all. We use progesterone in normal pregnancies that have preterm labor. It's indicated for if you have higher multiples like triplets and quadruplets. It's actually indicated. I'd say 20% of our patients up on our high-risk floor right now are getting daily progesterone. That is the exact same medication that we use to reverse the effect of the abortion pill. So 60% of the time, we've trained over 500 doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, nurse midwives nationwide, and we have documented over 5,000 successful reversals.
Wow.
Well, which is good,
Yeah.
but the abortion pill is used over 600,000 times each year, and we've documented over 5,000 reversals, but we have absolutely no evidence that it causes any harm to the mom or the baby. And even with all the babies that have been delivered after we've given them progesterone for other health reasons, we don't see any evidence of issues.
That's great.
Okay, yeah. Our time is almost gone here. Just one last question for you. You love the Bible. Is there a certain verse in the Bible that you would call your life verse? Something that's guided you throughout life?
I would say Ephesians 2:8-9.
Oh, amen.
You know, when
The
we
gospel,
think
listen.
about, our lives, I mean, am I a sinner? Yeah. I can look at the two of you, and I'm just going to assume you're both sinners too.
You're correct.
Yeah.
But
She
when-
tells me that I am. So.
Oh, yeah.
No.
I mean,
we
I
definitely
know
are.
my flaws. There's no doubt about it. But you think that God loved us enough that he sent his son, he lived a perfect life, and then he gave his life for us and was dead, not just merely dead, really most sincerely dead for 3 days, conquered death, rose again. We can put our trust in him. And when you look at Ephesians 2:8-9, you say, well, is this because of something I did, that I lived a good life? No. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. This is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast.
Amen.
So salvation is a gift for us. We accept it freely, and it's nothing that we did to earn ourselves, a position and a eternity in heaven.
Yeah.
When they were asking, Donald Trump about, going to heaven and if heaven exists, he said, yes, it does. And he said, and I hope I'm living a good life and I'm good enough to get there. He missed the whole point of the
Right.
gospel.
Yeah.
And with all the pastors that are surrounding him, the man needs to hear the gospel.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But that would be the verse that I would say is probably one of my favorite verses. How can you pick a favorite? But that does mean a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Bill Lile, thank you so much for joining us
thank you.
today. You are the Pro-Life Doc, and your website is prolifedoc.org.
Correct.
All right, good. Yes. So if you're following this, we encourage you to follow him on all the social media platforms. And I do want to thank you very much for joining us, and also mention if there are ways that I can serve you as a pastor, I'm happy to do that. Please email me. You can email me directly at pastor@northstonebaptist.org. Okay? We trust that this communication today was strength for your life, and we do recognize that God is our refuge and he's our strength, and that he is a very present help in trouble. So it is to him that we give all the glory. Thanks again for joining us.